Hello everyone, good to see you again. My name is Ank Kleinmeulman. Our website is cwowi.eu, Church Without Walls International. We are part of a worldwide network of house churches, people who are spiritually speaking on the same page, who love to grow in the Lord, love to get to know Him better, and to be there for others, and to be the church like we see that portrayed it in the book of Acts. Go to our website and go to the main website, cwowi.org, to find many articles, videos, and so on if you want to know more about house church or relationship-based faith. Today I want to talk to you about being refreshed. How do you do that? Sometimes, especially now, well, in the natural, it's late summer. Summer can be hot for many people, you know, outside a hot temperature, and you feel like you can't do anymore. You are drained and you feel weary. And you need some refreshment. And I was thinking that scripture in Acts 3:19-20 came to my mind, and I know it's for me. And then I was praying about it, and I think it's not only for me, but it's for many of you. It says in the second part of that chapter, or Acts 3:19-20, it talks about, of course, it talks about getting to know the Lord and repenting and so on, but that's not what I want to talk about. Then it says, so that times of refreshing may come from the presence of the Lord. And the Amplified adds to it, restoring you like a cool wind on a hot day. Wow. So times of refreshing may come from the presence of the Lord, and that refreshing is restoring you like a cool wind on a hot day. And we know how beautiful it is when you have a cool wind on a hot day. And I feel in my life, and probably in your life too, that it was like hot, spiritually speaking. It was draining. It was like, I can't do it anymore. It's too much. And then there will be times of refreshing from the presence of the Lord. So just be in His presence when you feel like that. Just say, Father, I can't do it anymore. Lord, refresh me, please. And He will do that. So the word refreshing means to revive or to recover your strength and energy. When I think about people who needed to be refreshed, I think about David. You know, at a certain time he was fleeing from Absalom, his son, because his son wanted to take over the kingdom. And you can find it in 2 Samuel, chapter 6. And then it says he was fleeing from Absalom. And then it says he became weary. And all the people who were with him, so it was not only him, but all the people who were with him. So they refreshed themselves. And I thought, what does it mean? Because when you are weary, it's not only physically, but also mentally. So how did he refresh himself? And weary means he was extreme tired, physically or mentally exhausted. He was spiritually drained. He had a lack of strength to move forward. What did David do to refresh himself? And when you go back to the Psalms and everything that David wrote about, you know, there is an instance in 1 Samuel chapter 30, where David and his men came to Ziklag. Maybe you know that story, quite a familiar story. And the Amalekites had burned it with fire, and they'd taken captive their wives and their sons and their daughters, and they had carried them away. And then it says that David and the people, they wept until they had no more power to weep. Have you ever done that? That you weep and weep until you are exhausted, you have no more power to weep. It says David was greatly distressed, for the people spoke of stoning him. You can imagine that. And then it says, but. So that's amazing. David was greatly distressed, for the people spoke of stoning him, but David strengthened himself in the Lord, or he encouraged himself. He made himself strong in the Lord. How did he do that? Well, we know that David had grown a relationship with God from childhood, and he strengthened himself by recalling those times when God met him, helped him through challenges. And you know that he wrote Psalm 23, right? He leads me beside the still waters. He restores my soul. So he had experienced that he restores your soul. Then he says, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. So David had that relationship with the Lord. So he strengthened himself. He recalled what the Lord had done for him. And he was with him. He knew, I will fear no evil. You are with me, no matter what I go through. No matter if the people want to stone me, I will strengthen myself in you, Lord, for you are with me. And then I thought about strengthening yourself and refreshing yourself. And there came a scripture to mind in Isaiah 28, verse 11 and 12. Now, let's first go to 1 Corinthians 14, because Paul is quoting the scripture in Isaiah. And in 1 Corinthians 14, a well-known chapter, he talks about speaking in tongues, prophesying, and so on. And he says, I thank my God, I speak more in tongues than you all. And he talks about tongues being a sign to unbelievers. And then he says in verse 21, and that is where he quotes Isaiah 28, he says, in the law it is written, with men of other tongues and other lips I will speak to this people, and yet for all that they will not hear me. So he's quoting part of Isaiah 28. So when you go there, verse 11 and then verse 12, it says, for with stammering lips and another tongue he will speak to his people, to whom he said, this is the rest with which you may cause the weary to rest, and this is the refreshing. So when Paul quotes this scripture, quotes Isaiah, and he's talking about speaking in tongues, definitely this is the rest. He's stammering lips and another tongue. He's talking about speaking in tongues. So speaking in tongues is rest. It will cause the weary to rest when you are extreme tired, physically, mentally exhausted, when you think you can't go on anymore. Speak in tongues. This is the refreshing. So try to do that and make a habit when you feel like, okay, I need some rest, I need some refreshing. Just speak in tongues. You can do it under your breath. You can take some time to speak in tongues. You can do it during the whole day. You know, when you think about it, a line here, a line there, and keep the motor running and keep that refreshing going on in your life. Because that's what we all need, right? And the Lord has provided a means by speaking in tongues. Okay, amazing. So we can refresh ourselves to be in the presence of the Lord. That's what we can do. We can refresh ourselves by speaking in tongues and knowing that it will refresh yourself and give you more the energy back again. And we can also be refreshed. We can refresh others because the Lord lives in us. Christ is in us. So when it says in Acts 3 times of refreshing may come from the presence of the Lord, you bring the Lord with you when you go to someone else. And we all need to be refreshed and to be encouraged, right? Paul needed that and the others needed it in the New Testament. When you go to 1 Corinthians 16, for instance, verse 18, well, 15 actually, he's talking about different people. He talks about Stephanus. He says, you know, the household of Stephanus, that they have devoted themselves to the ministry of the saints. Amazing. He and his house and his family, they devoted themselves to the ministry of the saints. And he says that you may also submit to such and to everyone who works and labors with us. And I'm glad about the coming of Stephanas, Fortunas, Achaius, for what was lacking on their part, on your part, they supplied, for they refreshed my spirit and yours. And therefore acknowledge such men. So Fortunas, Achaias, and the other Stephanas, they had devoted themselves to the ministry of the saints. A part of the ministry to the saints is to refresh others. Have you ever been in the presence from some person? Well, you feel drained, you feel tired, and you talk to them. Just being in their presence, you can feel that refreshing. You can feel that burden lifting from you, and you feel lighter afterwards. And you have more joy and energy to go on. It doesn't always have to be very spiritual. People pray for you, but just being in the presence and just sharing your story and be there. They refreshed their spirit and yours. Amazing. Paul was also refreshed by Onesiphorus. It says in I forgot the scripture. He says, he often refreshed me, and he was not ashamed of my chains. And in many ways he ministered to me in Ephesus. In many ways. In how many ways can you minister to someone else? Think about that. In what way can you minister to someone else today? About Titus, it says in 2 Corinthians 7:13 that he was refreshed by the Corinthians. Paul talks about Titus, and he says, his spirit has been refreshed by you all. Amazing. Titus came to visit them. A lot of things had happened in the Corinthians church, and he wanted to know how they were doing. And then it says, well, he was refreshed by you all. Amazing. He heard the good stories, how they were following the Lord and doing the right thing, and that refreshed his spirit. So, going back to the first scripture that I quoted in Acts chapter 3, that times of refreshing may come from the presence of the Lord. I know that will happen to me. I know that will happen to you. The Lord will do that to you because we sometimes just need it. Okay, refresh in His presence, speak in tongues, and be that person that refreshes others. If you have a question, go to our website, cwowi.eu. If you have a question or whatever you want to talk about, very welcome. Thank you for listening to me and see you next time. Bye-bye.